Today, we're going to talk about something that's less of a self-help book and more of an operating system for your life. Seriously, it's a way to completely rewire your thinking for genuine success and meaning, and it's all based on the timeless wisdom of Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
But first, let's start with a question that probably hits a little too close to home for a lot of us. You ever get to the end of a long day or a crazy week, and you're just completely drained? You look back at everything you did, all the running around, and you think, wow, I was busy, but was I actually effective? If you felt that, you are definitely not alone. It's so easy to mistake all that activity for actual achievement.
So the solution isn't some new productivity app or a clever little life hack. It's about a fundamental shift in how you see everything, an inside-out approach. And honestly, in our world of remote work, constant pings, and just general uncertainty, these principles have never been more important. The goal here isn't to just cram more stuff into your day. It's about getting the right things done.
And its power really does last. I mean, look at what Ariana Huffington said. In an age where burnout is practically a default setting, Covey's ideas about renewing ourselves and tapping into our deepest resources, well, that's exactly what we need to hear. This is more than self-help. It's a guide to sustainable success in a world that just keeps demanding more and more from us.
Okay, so before we jump into the habits themselves, what do we even mean by a habit? It's not just, brushing your teeth without thinking. In Covey's world, a habit is where 3 things overlap. You've got knowledge, that's the what to do and why you're doing it. You've got skill, the how to do it. And then you've got desire, that's the motivation, the real want to do it. You need all 3 of those pieces working together to make a real, lasting change. So here's our roadmap for today. The habits follow this powerful path that Covey called the maturity continuum. Think of it as a journey. We all start out independence, right? Relying on others. The first big goal is to achieve independence, mastering ourselves. But here's the kicker. That's not the final destination. The highest level of effectiveness is actually interdependence, where we team up with other independent people to create something way bigger than we ever could on our own. And that whole journey, that entire process, it has to start from the inside out. You can't lead a team, you can't build great relationships until you've mastered yourself first. This is what Covey called the private victory. It's the absolute foundation for everything else, and it's built on the first 3 habits. So, habit 1. This is the bedrock of everything. Be proactive. This is a huge idea. It's the belief that you are the programmer, not the program. See, most people are reactive. They just respond to what happens around them. But proactive people get that between the thing that happens, the stimulus, and how they react, there's a little bit of space. And in that space, that's where your freedom and power to choose your response lives. You can actually hear the difference in the way people talk. Reactive language gives away power. It's stuff like, oh, there's nothing I can do, or I have to do this, or he makes me so mad. But listen to proactive language. It's about ownership. It's, let's look at our alternatives. I choose to. I control my own feelings. This isn't just about words. It's a massive mental shift from being a victim of your circumstances to being the creator of your life. So once you accept that you're the programmer, habit 2 is the logical next step. It's time to actually write the program. This is the habit of beginning with the end in mind. It's about personal leadership. It's about pausing before you start frantically climbing the ladder of success to ask, hey, is this ladder even leaning against the right wall? Now, to really get this, Covey asks a pretty intense question. He says to imagine your own funeral. What would you want people to say about you? Your family, your friends, your coworkers? What kind of person were you? What did you contribute? Answering that question, that connects you to your deepest, most important values. And that becomes the end you start designing your life around. All right, so if habit 1 is realizing you're the programmer and habit 2 is writing the program, then habit 3 is where the rubber meets the road. It's about running that program every single day. This is put first things first, the habit of personal management. The big idea here is to fight what Covey calls the tyranny of the urgent. Let's be real, we're all a little addicted to the urgent stuff. The email notification, the Slack ping, because crossing it off a list gives us a little buzz. But truly effective people have the discipline to focus on what's important, even if it isn't urgent. Things like long-term planning, building relationships, or learning a new skill. This is where you learn to say no to the good things so you have space to say yes to the absolute best things. This quote just sums it up perfectly. Habits 1, 2, and 3, that's your private victory. It's all about building your character, your vision, and your discipline from the inside. And it's so critical because, think about it, if you can't even keep the promises you make to yourself, how can you ever build trust and have good relationships with other people? This self-mastery is absolutely essential for what comes next. So, once you've built that solid foundation of character, you're ready to move from independence to interdependence. This is what we call the public victory. This is where you start applying these principles to working with other people and where you go from just personal success to real leadership. Habit 4 requires a complete change in your mindset. Most of us and our society are programmed to think win-lose. We see life as a big competition, a pie where if you get a bigger slice, I get a smaller one. Think win-win flips that completely. It comes from a place of abundance, a belief that there's plenty for everybody. It says, hey, instead of fighting over the size of our slice, let's work together to bake a much, much bigger pie. Okay, this one might be the single hardest, but also the most powerful communication habit you will ever learn. Most of us don't listen with the intent to actually understand. We listen with the intent to reply. We're just formulating a response, waiting for our turn to jump in. This habit turns that completely on its head. It's about genuine, empathetic listening, trying to truly see the world through the other person's eyes. You have to diagnose the problem before you try to prescribe a solution. And let's be honest, this is so hard. What I love about this quote is that Covey himself admitted he struggled with it. Right? When you're tired, you're stressed, and you are 100% sure that you're right, listening feels like a chore. It's a great reminder that this isn't about being perfect. It's a daily practice, a constant fight against our own ego. So when you combine that win-win attitude with a real desire to understand other people, something amazing happens. You get synergy. This is the idea that the whole is truly greater than the sum of its parts. It's about valuing the fact that people are different. When you put a super analytical person and a wildly creative person on the same team, they don't just compromise and meet in the middle. They create something brand new, something better than either of them could have ever come up with alone. That's synergy. So, we've worked on mastering ourselves, and we're working on mastering our relationships. But how do you keep all of this going? How do you avoid burning out and just slipping back into old habits? Well, that brings us to the final crucial habit that ties everything else together. Habit 7 is sharpen the saw. Covey tells this little story about a guy who's just feverishly trying to saw down a tree. Someone comes along and asks him, "Why don't you take a break and sharpen your saw?" And the guy replies, "I can't, I'm too busy sawing." We do that all the time, don't we? We're too busy doing the work to improve our ability to do the work. This habit is all about taking time to renew yourself, because you are your greatest asset. And this renewal has to happen across 4 key areas: physical, your body; mental, your mind; spiritual, your connection to your values and purpose; and social/emotional, your relationships with others. And the most important part is that these are not separate things. They're all deeply connected. If you neglect your physical health, your mental focus is going to suffer. This isn't a luxury, it's the essential investment that makes all the other growth possible. So, we've gone from the private victory of mastering ourselves to the public victory of working with others, all fueled by continuous renewal. But, knowing the path is one thing. Walking the path is something else entirely. So the only question that really matters now is, where do you even start? It's so important to remember that this is not a checklist. You don't just do these 7 things and suddenly you're fixed for life. That's not how it works. This is an upward spiral of growth. The more you practice these habits, the more you'll find new challenges that require an even deeper understanding of them. It is a lifelong process of learning, committing, and growing. So to bring this all home, here's my advice. Don't try to master all 7 habits by next week. That's just a recipe for getting overwhelmed. Instead, just look at this framework and ask yourself one simple question. Which one habit, if I really focused on it this week, would have the biggest positive impact on my life right now? Just start there, because the journey to a truly effective life doesn't start with 7 steps. It starts with 1.